Hi, this is Les Hewitt, Director of Training, and I'm delighted to start off with our interview process. I've got a very special guest today. His name is Dan Taggart. Dan began his entrepreneurial career in 1990 when he co-founded Infobases Inc., an electronic publishing company. And he led Infobases to become the predominant electronic publisher within their market niche and received the prestigious Inc. 500 Fastest Growing Companies Award back in 1995. And then in early 1997, Dan and another partner acquired a small but highly respected genealogy book publisher named Ancestry. You may have heard of them. And after recapitalizing the business, they immediately began transforming this traditional print publishing business into a high-tech .com. And their vision was to leverage the Ancestry brand online and create the largest community for family history enthusiasts on the internet. And Dan helped put together a world-class management team. He raised more than $90 million in venture capital and developed one of the most successful affiliate programs of all time, building their subscription service to more than 2 million active members. And Ancestry.com recently sold for $1.6 billion. So Dan has a lot of experience in building businesses, and we want to get right to it here. So Dan, welcome to the program. First question for you, what prompted you to become an entrepreneur?
Hey, well, Les, thank you for that introduction. And, it's by accident that I got involved in, I'll be honest with you, I never had intended to start a business early in my career. I was planning on being maybe a professor or something like that, to going into academia. And in fact, it was while I was in my master's program that a good friend of mine and I decided we needed to make more money to help put ourselves through school. So we came up with a product idea, and we started selling this neat little electronic book product in the classified ads out of the newspaper, out of our little apartments. And lo and behold, that product became so popular, and there was such a high demand for it, that we soon dropped out of our master's programs and determined that would be a better road to take than the long road through academia. So we started this little business. We really didn't know what we were doing. We had very little experience, almost no experience, and because the product was so good, it was very forgiving, and we learned as we went. So we started from a very small kind of idea, and then just let it grow as we learned more, which goes to tell you that you can start something small and it can become big if you just stick with it. We actually started this with a couple $100 on a credit card, and like you said, it sold recently for $1.6 billion. So you don't have to know a lot to get started.
Yeah, that's a great story. As a young adult, when you were growing up, who influenced you the most, Dan? That molded your present values, because I think that's very important.
No question, that would be my parents, and especially my dad. In terms of my business career, he was a self-made man, and literally started with no more than an 8th grade education, became a carpenter, later became a general contractor, then eventually got into real estate and doing commercial real estate, and just gradually kept expanding what he was able to do by learning more and more and gaining more and more relationships. So by the end of his career, he was doing very, very well. That always inspired me, and it taught me that you don't have to have a Harvard degree. You don't have to be a millionaire to start with. You don't have to inherit a fortune. You can start very small and end up just over the process of learning and developing relationships. You can have a very successful career. So I'd have to say my dad was the greatest inspiration in my life.
Great. And very inspiring for other people to hear that as well. So what would you say your greatest strengths then are in business? Can you share a few examples for us?
Yeah. I think my greatest strength has probably been the ability to just roll up my sleeves and get something started. So many people are afraid to take that first step. It's paralysis by analysis. They overthink things so much, and sometimes you just need to get the ball rolling. It's like a writer who has writer's block. The best way to beat writer's block is start writing. Anything, just start writing. And I think the best way to get into business is to jump in with both feet, And you don't have to necessarily get it perfect the first time, but you'll learn. That's the important thing. You'll learn as you go, and you'll gain relationships, and doors will open for you, and opportunities you never would have had otherwise will present themselves simply because you got yourself out there and got something going. Then probably secondly, I've been fortunate in associating with good people. The most important decision you ever make in business is the people you partner with or hire or associate with. And I've been able to surround myself in almost every case with very good people who have been really the key to my success. I'm not that smart of a guy myself. I'll have to admit that. But I have brought very smart people in who have helped me where I was weak.
Excellent. And I really relate to the writer's block comment. I mean, you just got to get past that stuff. What are the most important qualities you look for, Dan, when determining whether to become involved in a new business yourself, whether it's a really good opportunity or not?
Well, okay, I've been involved in at least a dozen businesses over the past 20 years myself, and I've reviewed hundreds of other opportunities. I get people coming to me with an opportunity on a weekly basis, or another, and a lot of them are very good. And I've kind of boiled it down to two or three big factors, and there's a lot of little things. But the big factors are, number one, is it a game changer? Does it in some way disrupt the existing model? Does it present a new paradigm that's going to create a significant advantage over the competition, over what's already out there? And then number two, is it going to provide an irresistible value to the customer? Is it a no-brainer decision where it's, of course I would want that. Why would I not buy that product? If it has those two factors, I can almost, in every case, know that it's going to be successful. There's other factors that can derail you, but those are two big ones. Then probably third, and importantly, is it something I'm passionate about? Life's too short to spend it doing things that have no meaning to you or that aren't going to help you achieve happiness in life. So those are probably the three.
Yeah, very, very profound. Again, great advice for people that are listening in on this that want to start a business of their own. Let's flip it the other way, Dan. You know, in your experience, what are the primary reasons that businesses fail? What are some of the most common things you've noticed?
That's easy. Number one, a bad idea or product. If the product doesn't work, if it doesn't do what it says it's going to do, you're not going to succeed. You might have initial success. You can pull the wool over people's eyes for a time, but ultimately your product has to deliver value, real value. Number two, poor management. When people aren't focused, when they don't do what's required to make the business successful, and we can talk more about that later, but management issues. And then three, and very importantly, cash problems, cash flow. Sometimes it's because you're undercapitalized to begin with, or because you spend too long building a business and not getting to revenue. I've seen that happen where people spend forever building a product or coming up with an idea and researching and developing, but they never get it to market. And so those are the three issues that I think that cause people to fail most often.
So I'm sure you've had some setbacks, in your career. Everybody that starts a business and runs it obviously comes up with some obstacles. Can you name one significant setback that you've faced in your career and how you overcame it? That would be the big lesson.
Well, okay. Probably the biggest setback I ever had was when the internet bubble burst back in 2000, right before we were scheduled to go out with a public offering. Morgan Stanley was going to take us out. They'd already done eBay and Amazon, and we were going to be their third big play. And then right before we were to go out, things started to unravel. And the IPO got pulled. The $200 million that I was going to make in the IPO vanished overnight. We still had a lot of value with that company, but it's stock, and so you can't go to the grocery store with stock and buy bread and peanut butter, right? So what do you do? And basically, for the next number of years, we waited until the market came back, and eventually it did, and Ancestry was able to sell at a very good price. During the meantime, my ownership of that company got whittled down through various rounds of investment. And so I didn't make nearly as much as I would like to have made. But the one thing that you take from those experiences is just that, the experience. the things you've learned, the contacts you've made, the relationships you've developed. You can't lose those when a bubble bursts. And so you simply think of other ways to leverage that experience and know-how and the reputation and credibility you have and hopefully you've gained, and those relationships. And so you go back to that and you find other opportunities to leverage that with.
Very good. You know, I know obviously growing any business can be challenging, and you know, there's some essential things that we must do. What tips could you share, maybe just one or two, with our audience here that you have for building a sustainable, profitable organization?
Well, I would say initially keep it simple and focus on the key drivers of your business, which in most cases is simply sales. If sales are going well, chances are your business is going to succeed. So you need to focus a lot of attention on whatever helps you improve your sales. Also, you have to find the right people for the job. The best ROI you'll ever experience is in hiring good people. So I don't just hire the first guy that walks in the door. I'll take and interview people and look for the right candidate that I know is going to be successful. Even then, sometimes, you know, you choose someone that doesn't turn out, but most often you will find a much better person if you interview a half dozen or a dozen people before you make your decision. So those are the two things. Keep it simple, focus, identify first what your key drivers are and focus on those, and then get the right people involved to make your business successful.
So Dan, you built a world-class management team obviously at Ancestry, and you've been talking a little about hiring and the importance of that, but what's your best strategy for finding and hiring those great people we're all looking for?
Well, I think number one, you have to be patient, Les. You have to make sure you're interviewing a lot of candidates before you hire. That's number one. Most people really do hire the first person that walks in the door. It's sad, but that happens a lot. And if you don't have at least a half dozen or more people for an important position, you really have done yourself a disservice. So that's number one. You learn an awful lot just from the interview process, but you should also talk to the former employers. Actually call their references and see what they have to say about their past performance. The best gauge of future performance is past performance. Now, you'll still end up making some mistakes, so you also have to be willing to judge their performance after you've hired them. The hiring process doesn't end with somebody on. So you judge their actual performance. Put metrics in place that they understand and measure them on those metrics. Let them know what you expect. And if they can't get the job done, you really do have to replace them. There's nothing that can drag your business down faster than a salesperson who can't sell or a programmer who can't write good code. And so sometimes you just have to make the right decision for the business and replace someone who's not performing.
Great. I've noticed when the economy gets tough sometimes that businesses sacrifice training, that's one of the first things that gets cut, unfortunately. How important do you think training is, particularly for, people that are in management, for example, that you're grooming for bigger positions? And what topics do you think are most relevant? Is it all skill-based, or do you look at personal development as well?
Well, probably it depends on the position, but both. And I think it's critical that you have built into your culture as a business that there is a need for ongoing training and self-improvement, staying on top of best practices. You should be every employee should have the freedom and actually the expectation from management that they spend at least 10%, 20% of their time in improving their ability to perform their job. So, if you institutionalize that in some way by saying, hey, every Friday is training day, so we don't expect you to be, working on your quotas or goals or whatever it is. We want you to be, reading your newsletters, looking at your forums, working with whatever networks you belong to improve your skills. And I think, again, that's one of the best investments you can make in your business is to invest in your people to help them become better at their job.
Well, I'm really glad you said that, because often we see people pay lip service to it, and certainly when times are challenging, that doesn't work very well. Now, the online direct sales industry is tremendously competitive today. And how would you make a new business really stand out so it has a good chance to succeed?
Well, I think especially with this particular opportunity, we have really a unique opportunity to let people tap into something that's already there, that's powerful, that's credible, that's technologically sound, and there's no question it's going to improve their lives in many ways. So this isn't a gimmick. It's not another miracle potion from the latest exotic fruit discovered in the Amazon. I think that's a pretty tired old message. This is something that people will immediately feel like, oh, thank heavens, this is something I can really believe in. I don't feel embarrassed about when I tell my friends about it. This is Google, for heaven's sakes, or other technologies that we're introducing that everyone can use right now and get real value from it. So that's a refreshing and hopefully exciting difference.
Very much so. Now you're a visionary, obviously, Dan, and great success behind you already. But where do you see the greatest opportunities, say, in the next 5 years or so?
Well,
If you were to look into your crystal ball, what would you find?
Well, I don't need to ball, just look on my laptop screen. You know, really, it's the same as the next 5 years, maybe some of the last 5 years. The greatest opportunities have been and will continue to be in utilizing technologies, especially the internet, to create and leverage vast global networks of people. You know, finding and joining together with people of similar interests and goals and leveraging the skills and products and services you possess across a global market. There's nothing better than social media marketing for achieving that. Digital product delivery is another area tremendously exciting, where the cost of goods can be zero and your delivery mechanism you know, is instantaneous. You can target people demographically, geographically, behaviorally. So the targeted marketing opportunities are tremendous with the tools that exist that any lay person can use now. They're so simple. So that's where I think if you have access to the internet, that's where I would say your greatest opportunities are. Leverage that new global tool and make the best use of what you bring to the world by leveraging it to the world.
Great. Now, if you had the opportunity to, let's say, relive your career again, is there any one change that you would make looking back that would have saved you maybe a lot of time, energy, and or money?
Yeah, I would have said yes to an offer on my stock for a very large sum of money prior to the internet bubble bursting. That would have made a huge difference. But other than that, I think I've made some of the common mistakes that everyone makes. And actually I've learned more from my mistakes than from my successes. So it's been a great education process. I would say that probably some of the people that I've chosen to hand the reins over to in companies that I've owned or started, and I did that too early perhaps, and exited or allowed myself to lose control or hand it over to somebody else. Those decisions are they should be made very carefully, and sometimes they can get you in real trouble. So there's a couple of times when I've done that, and if I hadn't, I would have been more successful.
Excellent. Okay, this has been incredibly valuable. Just the tips that you've shared, Dan, you know, for some people it would take years of trial and error to figure this out. So I encourage everybody to listen to this broadcast more than once for sure. I hope you were taking good notes. And let's have a final question here to wrap things up. You know, a big issue I'm finding today, Dan, for busy families is creating what I call a happy integrated lifestyle, where work doesn't detract from their overall quality of life. What's your best advice for accomplishing this? I mean, this is a big question.
Don't wait until you retire or until you become rich to start doing the things that are important. You know, life is a journey, and if you take time all along the way to enjoy doing the things you want to do with the people you love, then whether you become wealthy or not, you still end up having lived a rich life. That's my advice. Don't wait until after you make the millions before you start doing the things you want with the people you love.
Yeah, great advice. Well, Dan, I want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and again, this has been a very rewarding interview for me, and I know for the people that are listening. So Once again, from me, Les Hewitt, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Make sure you listen to it more than once. Take good notes, and more important, apply what's most relevant to you that will help you in your business and in your life. Until next time, all the best, stay focused, and have fun.
Thanks, Les.